This meeting will come to order. Welcome to the fiscal year 2021 Energy and Water Development Subcommittee Markup. I'm joined by my good friend, Mike Simpson, our ranking member who is here today, and I also want to welcome the full committee chair, Mrs. Lowy, ranking member Granger, and all our subcommittee members who are here in person and those participating by secure video teleconference. We have the following members attending in person: Representative Visklosky, Representative Wasserman-Schultz, Representative Kilmer, Representative Pocan, Representative Calvert. And we have Representatives Kirkpatrick and Frankel participating by video. Before I move to a brief opening statement, I'd like to offer an explanation of how this markup will work. Today's room has been configured to maintain the recommended 6 feet social distancing between members, staff, and the press corps in the room. As I mentioned, some members have opted to use secure video teleconferencing, which allows them to participate remotely. For those on video conference, once you start speaking, there will be a slight delay before you are displayed on the main screen. Speaking into the microphone activates the camera, displaying the speaker on the main screen. Do not stop your remarks if you do not immediately see the screen switch. If the screen does not change after several seconds, please make sure you are not muted. To minimize background noise and ensure the correct speaker is being displayed, we ask that the members who are participating by video remain on mute unless you have sought recognition. For members using the video option, you will notice a clock on the bottom of your screen that will show how much time is remaining. At 1 minute remaining, the clock will turn to yellow. At 30 seconds remaining, I will gently tap the gavel to remind members that their time is almost expired. When your time has expired, the clock will turn red, and I will move to recognize other members. In terms of the speaking order, we will follow our traditional order, beginning with the chair and ranking member of the subcommittee, then the chair and ranking member of the full committee, and then any other members who wish to speak. Finally, we have set up an email address to which members can send anything they wish to submit in writing at any of our hearings or markups, including documents to be inserted in the record by unanimous consent, amendments, motions, other unanimous consent requests, and so on. That email has been provided to your staffs. I would remind all members that they must verbally request unanimous consent out loud, separately from sending the document or written unanimous consent requests to the email address. Thank you all for your patience and understanding as we navigate this new technology and platform. Now I'd like to move to my own opening statement. Today we consider the fiscal year 2021 funding bill for energy and water development and related agencies. This bill makes critical investments to combat climate change, strengthen our nation's energy and water infrastructure, and responsibly fund our nation's nuclear deterrent, while rejecting the administration's dangerous plan to restart nuclear explosive testing. In addition to regular appropriations, the bill includes additional infrastructure investments to help our nation respond to the economic recession following the coronavirus pandemic. This bill rejects the President's drastic and short-sighted proposed cuts. Instead, it continues investments in important programs that keep our nation at the forefront of global energy innovation, enables the efficient shipment of goods for a robust economy, and provides water and electricity to 31 million Americans and irrigation to 10 million acres of valuable farmland. These programs are the lifeblood for millions of Americans. Let me briefly walk through the bill. The MARC provides $7.6 billion for the Army Corps of Engineers, the second year of record funding, and an increase of $1.7 billion above the budget request, in additional funding to support projects across our country and in our districts. The MARC provides $1.64 billion for the Bureau of Reclamation, an increase of $508 million above the request. The MARC provides $41 billion for the Department of Energy, an increase of $5.1 billion above the request. And within the Department of Energy, the bill contains historic funding levels for the following programs. The Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy Program receives $2.85 billion, $2.1 billion above the request. ARPA-E receives $435 million, a record amount for a program the President proposed to eliminate. And the Office of Science receives $7.05 billion, $1.2 billion above the request. The bill also provides an increase for the Weatherization Assistance Program, which helps ensure that low-income households have energy-efficient, more livable homes. The National Nuclear Security Administration receives $18 billion, $1.3 billion above 2020. And within NNSA, the bill responsibly funds America's nuclear deterrent while prohibiting nuclear weapons testing, and nuclear nonproliferation receives $2.24 billion, an increase of $209 million above the request. Finally, this bill prohibits funds to be used for a border wall and does not allow the President to bypass congressional intent to divert valuable core funding from previously approved appropriations. Importantly, the bill also includes additional investments in infrastructure, including $17 billion for the Corps to accelerate projects, including $10 billion in construction and $5 billion in operation and maintenance. $3 billion to accelerate work on reclamation projects, and finally $23.5 billion for the Department of Energy to modernize infrastructure and deploy technologies for a clean energy future. In short, this bill will put America back to work by investing in energy innovation, promoting economic prosperity, and help prepare American industry to compete globally. The Department of Energy's energy innovation programs help our country to mitigate and adapt to climate change, work that was highlighted and recommended to continue under the recent report on solving the climate crisis. This bill makes desperately needed investments in water infrastructure, clean energy technologies, and promotes a credible nuclear deterrent while supporting a robust nonproliferation program. I'd like to thank all our subcommittee members for their engagement during the unusual process this year as we work remotely. I also want to thank our able ranking member, Mr. Simpson. I so enjoy our collegial partnership, and I will now turn to Mr. Simpson for any opening remarks.
Thank you, Chairwoman Kaptur. I'd like to thank you for presenting the Energy and Water Bill today. Even under normal circumstances, putting the bill together is a big job, and of course this year you've had to deal with some unusual challenges, to say the least. I'd also like to thank Ms. Loy and Ms. Granger of the full committee for their leadership and support of the important programs in this bill. It comes as no surprise that the majority's bill does not emphasize the same priorities a Republican bill would emphasize. It is clear, though, that the majority worked hard to address individual members' priorities from both sides of the aisle, and I thank the chair and the staff for working with our members. Of great importance to me is the Department of Nuclear Energy programs. I appreciate the chairwoman's efforts to address many of my priorities within this account. Unfortunately, overall funding for the program is not reflective of its importance to the national and global energy future. In several places, the report expresses the majority's intent to address climate change. Yet those words seem a little hollow when nuclear energy, a carbon-free baseload source of power, suffers one of the largest cuts from the enacted level in the entire bill. I am hopeful that moving forward, we can work together towards a stronger overall funding level. The bill includes an astonishing amount of emergency spending, mandatory spending, and other gimmicks that effectively undermine the defense and non-defense spending levels agreed to in last year's bipartisan budget deal, all without discussion, let alone buy-in from any House Republicans. Even with all of that additional spending, the bill still shortchanges funding for the nuclear weapons program by almost $2 billion. While I acknowledge the increase above last year, we must also acknowledge that the threats we face today are not the same threats we faced in the years immediately following the end of the Cold War. We must adequately fund the activities necessary to maintain a safe, reliable, and effective stockpile. The bill includes numerous policy riders and authorizing provisions, most of which we know will be unacceptable to the administration and will need to be addressed before a final bill can be enacted. Finally, the bill provides no funding to advance Yucca Mountain, the Yucca Mountain license application process. Yucca Mountain, I would remind everyone, is still the law of the land, and the Energy and Water Appropriations Bill should reflect that fact. Again, I'd like to thank Chairwoman Capter and the majority staff and the minority staff for their dedication and hard work on this bill. I look forward to working together as the bill moves forward through the legislative process to develop a final energy and water bill that reflects the balance of priorities. And while that concludes my prepared remarks, Chairwoman Capter, it's not everything I want to say.
Thank you very much, Ranking Member Simpson.
I'll be done in just a minute.
Oh, you're not? Oh, all right.
I want you to know that I have the greatest respect for you and the work that you've done in our relationship in working on this bill. And Chairwoman Loy, I have the greatest respect for you also. As I came today, I sat also on the Interior Committee, which we marked up this morning. I was prepared to vote for the Interior Appropriation Bill and also the Energy and Water Appropriation Bill. Even though they're not the bills I would have written. I understand that. I'm in the minority and you're in the majority and you get to write the bills the way you want it. But yet you reached out, and so did Chairwoman McCollum, to address the concerns of Republican members. And I think in the underlying bills you did a good job. Even though this has what Representative Loy used to accuse us of putting poison pill riders in bills, this has riders in it. Most of those I would have been willing to vote for in a bill, because I know most of them will have to get dropped before we enact a final bill. And I want to thank the staff for their work on this. However, I have to tell you I'm disappointed. And what I'm disappointed in is the partisanship that's entered in the Appropriations Committee. Last year we had a 302A allocation that everyone knew about, agreed to by Republicans, Democrats, and the administration. We've ignored that by putting hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars in emergency spending in this bill, all in the name of COVID relief or the economy or something else. In February and March, we worked in a bipartisan fashion, Republicans and Democrats. We passed 3 relief bills, one of them the $2 trillion CARES Act, got almost unanimous consent, unanimous support in the House and Senate to pass that bill, because Republicans and Democrats worked together. And then something happened. I was very proud of Congress when we did these first bills. But as I said, something happened. I don't know what it was. The Democrats decided to do a 4th COVID bill, never consulted Republicans on it. First time we saw it was when it hit the floor. $3 trillion. Never asked for our input or what we thought was necessary. I read through that bill. I was looking for the kitchen sink. I guess we were right. We've included everything in it but the kitchen sink. But Republicans were willing to work with Democrats. We never had the opportunity. This morning, Chairwoman McCollum said, I hope Republicans will be willing to work with Democrats on these relief efforts. We have always been willing to work with Democrats. But you know, it would be nice to be asked to the table. And because that bill, as we all know, even you knew, was never going to go anywhere in the Senate when it was passed. You've now decided to do it in the individual appropriation bills, which makes them more partisan than they've ever been before. And I think that's too bad. It's too bad for the process. I'm glad that at least you put the additional spending in a separate title at the end of the bill, making it easier to drop, because we know that's what will have to happen. But Republicans and Democrats need to get off the partisan high horses that we're on, both of us, and work in a bipartisan fashion to address what's necessary in the COVID relief. I would note that when you look at the CARES Act that was passed, there's still $130 billion in PPP funding that hasn't gone out the door yet. And that's all Republicans are saying is, let's see what we need, what we can do to help in this. Putting it into the appropriation bills, I fear, has turned this committee into something it's never been before. I yield back.
Thank you very much, Ranking Member Simpson. You've always expressed not just your views, but the views of your colleagues on the Republican side, and we respect that. We may not completely agree with you. If we look at what has been done as placeholders for the unknown as we move forward. We hope that in the end it will be for the good of the nation. So we thank you for your heartfelt remarks. Before I yield to our esteemed full committee chairwoman, Nita Lowy, I would like to extend to her, on behalf of all of the members who are participating today and all those who serve on our full 12 subcommittees of appropriations, a deep thank you for your service to our country, faithful service, honorable service, always with a friendly attitude that just helped to lift the institution in good times and in more difficult times. And we thank you for your abiding friendship, and we thank you for your service to our country, including your presence here today. I think it's fair to say every member feels a sense of loss. We will miss you very, very much. You always have an open invitation and to come and to see us again. We wish you all good fortune in the years ahead. And with that, I yield to Chairwoman Lowy for her remarks.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you, Madam Chair, for your very gracious, generous comments. It's always been a delight for me to work with you and to the other members of Appropriations. For me, all these years have been so positive, and the friendships and the knowledge of all of our colleagues has been, frankly, something I will never forget. But it's not over yet. We still have a little more work to do. So today, I want to save some of my other remarks for an appropriate time and just thank you and the important work that has been done in a bipartisan way in this committee on this bill. I know it took a lot of effort and energy, and I'm so glad that our process is moving forward. So thank you for your generosity and for your graciousness. I am very appreciative. And I want to thank Chairwoman Chapter, Ranking Member Simpson, for the bill before us, as well as the outstanding committee staff and all the members for the hard work, particularly given the challenges of the past few months. The fiscal year 2021 Energy and Water Development Bill would provide $49.6 billion to improve infrastructure, address climate change, and strengthen national security. Our nation's infrastructure is in dire need of modernization, and the bill would support construction of key projects across the nation and maintenance of our economically vital ports and harbors. As our nation continues to respond to COVID-19, the bill contains emergency spending intended to reinvigorate the economy and to ensure that funds in the bill actually help the American people. It bars the use of funds for President Trump's wasteful border wall. The bill also supports efforts to prevent the worst effects of climate change by promoting clean and renewable energy while making our infrastructure more resilient to the climate changes that are happening around us. Finally, the bill would provide $27.5 million for interim storage of nuclear waste and includes language that would prohibit funding for an unnecessary restart of nuclear weapons testing. This prohibition would ultimately strengthen our national security. The bill would improve the lives and livelihoods of Americans and help our nation emerge from the damaging economic effects of the pandemic. So I urge my colleagues, all my colleagues, to support this bill. Again, it's been an honor and privilege for me to work with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairwoman Lowy. I now yield to the full committee ranking member, Kay Granger, for her remarks.
Madam Chairman, I thank you for bringing forward the fiscal year 2021 Energy and Water Development and Related Agencies Appropriations Bill today. I also want to thank the ranking member, Mr. Simpson, for his leadership on this subcommittee. As a result of your work, this bill addresses the priorities of members on both sides of the aisle and does many good things to the American people, and particularly I appreciate that the bill continues significant funding for our nation's water resources infrastructure, such as navigation, flood control, water storage, and delivery projects. Almost every congressional district across the country benefits in some way from the important work of the Corps of Engineers and the Bureau of Reclamation. Unfortunately, the bill does not sufficiently prioritize funding for other critical national priorities. I'm also disappointed the bill includes controversial policy riders and significant new emergency spending. For example, funding for nuclear weapons activities, although increased above last year, is well below the budget request. We must ensure our ability to deter nuclear attack remains reliable and effective. The bill's policy riders include language stopping funds from being used for the border wall and prohibiting funds for a critical water storage project in California. Just as in previous years, we can expect the administration to oppose controversial policy riders. We will have to address them as this bill moves forward. Hopefully it can eventually be signed into law. Finally, the bill includes $43.5 billion in new emergency spending. I can't support this additional spending because there was not serious discussion with members on our side of the aisle. In closing, I'd like to recognize the members of the subcommittee for their work. I'd like to thank the staff for their work. And last, I'd like to associate myself with the very honest and sincere remarks by Congressman Simpson. I too believe we have failed to work together when the nation needed that as much as anything we could have given them. It saddens me, and I feel it's a loss for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ranking Member Granger. Are there any other members wishing to speak on the bill?
Madam Chair, this is Lois Frankel.
Yes, Congresswoman Frankel. Good afternoon. You may proceed.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much. Just a moment. Thank you, Chairwoman Capter. And I just wanted to also say it's not only been an honor to serve with you and my colleagues on this committee, but I just want to salute Chair Lowy. I feel like I would have liked a few more years with you, Chair, but you really have been a great role model. And I just wanted to, 3 quick points of funding that's so crucial for South Florida. First, we've again funded the Everglades at a high level and added necessary report language to allow authorized projects to move forward. Our Everglades is not only a natural beauty and national park, it's our main water source for 8 million Floridians and visitors and a home to 180 plants and animal species. So we thank you for that. And I'm also glad we're increasing our renewable energy and efficiency programs, which is essential for fighting climate change and reducing carbon emissions. And third, I just want to say also thank you. Beaches and waterways are economic engines and a way of life in South Florida, and they'll be more vital than ever when we get control of our COVID pandemic. So it's important that our coastal areas, we're going to have money for beach restoration efforts and maintain funding for intercoastal waterway dredging. Again, thank you, Madam Chair, and to my colleagues. I look forward to working with you as we keep these priorities in the bill as we work with the Senate. And I yield back.
Thank you. The gentlelady yields back. Are there any other members who wish to speak on the bill?
Madam Chair, this is Congresswoman Ann Kirkpatrick. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, Congresswoman Kirkpatrick. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us.
Good afternoon. Yeah, no, thank you very much. And I just want to thank you for not providing any funding for a border wall. We do not want a border wall in southern Arizona. We are trying to encourage our relationship with Mexico and It's part of our economy. About 40% of our economy in southern Arizona comes from Mexico. So I thank you for that. Thank you for your consideration. I yield back.
Thank you so very much. The gentlelady yields back. Does any other member wish to speak on the bill?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Yes, Congresswoman Wasserman Schultz is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I do appreciate both yours and the ranking member's efforts. There are a number of provisions in this bill that are very significant, particularly for South Florida, and I associate myself with the gentlelady from Florida's remarks. The 7 new construction starts will be a significant boost to making significant infrastructure improvements and allow critical projects to move forward. Very excited about the $250 million, which is a bipartisan achievement that ensures that we can continue to fully fund Everglades restoration projects, a long-term project that we have seen a couple of years of consensus on, and also importantly, a fix to troublesome report language that prevented congressionally authorized Everglades restoration projects from moving forward without an additional new start. You know how important that is to us in South Florida and making sure that we can get these projects completed. So thank you so much for your indulgence and for being so inclusive of our priorities. I yield back.
The gentlelady yields back. Are there any other members wishing to speak on the bill? All right. Are there any amendments to the bill? Seeing none, I would like to recognize Mr. Visklosky, our very good friend and the subcommittee vice chair, for a motion. Let me just point out before he does that, however, that this will be Mr. Visklosky's last motion on this subcommittee. And it is an understatement to say I have so appreciated your friendship, acumen, discipline, honor, good humor, and coming from the neighboring Hoosier state of Indiana, geographic sensitivity to the middle part of the country. And finally, for all you have taught me as to how to chair this subcommittee, having done it formerly. So, Mr. Visklosky, if you would kindly make the motion.
Madam Chair, I would sensitively move that the bill be favorably reported to the full committee.
The question is on the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. I ask unanimous consent that the staff be permitted to make technical and conforming changes to the bill and report just approved. Seeing no objection, so ordered. A bit of housekeeping. Please make sure you leave your materials at the table. And with that, the meeting stands adjourned with thanks to all of you.